The alpha mindset versus the average man. Pressure reveals the truth about a man. When the heat is on, does he sharpen into an unbreakable force, or does he crumble into dust? This is the fundamental difference between the elite and the average. Most men today fold under pressure because they've never been forged by it. They seek comfort. They avoid conflict. They let their emotions dictate their actions. And when life inevitably punches them in the face, they don't hit back, they break. Look around. Society has bred weakness into men. Modern culture tells you to be soft, to be in touch with your feelings, to avoid confrontation at all costs. But history proves otherwise. The strongest men, the ones who shaped empires, commanded armies, and built legacies, they weren't soft. They were warriors forged in adversity. They didn't beg for an easy life. They sharpened themselves for a hard one. This episode is not here to hold your hand. It's here to put a sword in it. If you're listening to this, you have two choices. Either keep playing the role of the fragile, weak man that society wants you to be, or step up and become something unbreakable. Why mental resilience separates leaders from followers. Every great leader, every warrior, every man who's ever conquered anything in life understands this one thing. Mental resilience is everything. It's not your talent, your intelligence, or even your resources that determine your success. It's your ability to endure, to adapt, and to push forward when every part of you wants to quit. Most men think success is about skill or luck. Wrong. Success is about surviving long enough to win. The weak crumble under pressure, the strong use it as fuel. The ones who endure always outlast those who break. When you're tired, do you keep going or make excuses? When your plan falls apart, do you adapt or collapse? When the world tests you, do you fight or fold? Your ability to handle pressure will decide your fate. There is no middle ground. The decline of toughness in modern men. Let's be brutally honest. Most men today are soft. The modern world has created a generation that is weaker, more fragile, and more dependent than ever before. Everything is designed for comfort, fast food, instant gratification, easy dopamine hits from screens. Society has stripped men of the struggle that once made them strong. But here's the truth. Comfort is the enemy of greatness. The more comfortable you are, the weaker you become. Strength is built through hardship. Resilience is forged in fire. And if you avoid the fire, you will never be anything more than average. Look at the men history remembers, the Spartans, the samurai, the great warriors and conquerors. They trained their minds just as much as their bodies. Spartans didn't just build muscle. They built an unshakable will. They were taught from childhood that pain is not the enemy. Weakness is. You need to start seeing yourself the same way. Your mind is your greatest weapon, but only if you train it. CEO Man is about war-ready men. This episode is the first strike. If you're listening to this, understand this truth. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody cares about your excuses. The world doesn't reward weakness. It exploits it. CEO Man isn't about surface-level motivation. We build warriors, leaders, kings. This episode is your initiation into mental resilience. Everything in your life, your business, your body, your relationships, your influence, rises or falls on your mental resilience. If your mind breaks under pressure, so does your empire. But if your mind is forged like iron, there is no challenge, no setback, no enemy that can break you. This episode is your first strike. If not, you'll stay exactly where you are, fragile, forgettable, and replaceable. Your call. What comes next in this episode? The warrior's mindset. Why hardship is your greatest training ground. The 3 pillars of an unbreakable mind. The code elite men live by. How to train yourself to be unshakable. Practical methods to forge your mindset. How the elite handle pressure in business, war, and life. What separates warriors from cowards. This isn't for the weak. If you're here, you're ready to step into the fire. Welcome to the war. The warrior's mindset. Why hardship is the ultimate training ground. Most men fear hardship. They avoid pain, run from adversity, and do everything they can to live in comfort. But comfort is the death of strength. A man who has never suffered is a man who has never been tested. And a man who has never been tested has no idea what he's truly capable of. Hardship isn't your enemy. It's your training ground. It's the battlefield where weak men fall and warriors rise. The strongest minds weren't built in peace. They were forged in fire, sharpened by struggle, and battle-tested in war. Reality check. Modern epidemic of weakness. The hard truth most men avoid. Let's look at the facts. Men today are 4 times more likely to suffer from depression than men in the 1950s. Why? Because modern life has made them soft. Everything is too easy. Convenience at every turn. Instant gratification. No real struggle. The result? A generation of men who fall apart the moment life gets hard. Testosterone levels have dropped by over 50% since the 1980s. Think about that. Testosterone is the hormone that drives ambition, aggression, and dominance. When it's low, men become passive, weak, and directionless. They hesitate instead of act. They fold instead of fight. Over 70% of Gen Z men struggle to handle basic life stressors. Instead of facing adversity, they escape. Scrolling through social media, binge-watching Netflix, numbing themselves with distractions. They choose comfort over challenge, and as a result, they remain fragile. This isn't evolution. This is de-evolution. A systematic weakening of men, generation after generation. If you don't actively fight against it, you will be one of them. This is why most men will never lead. Never build anything great. Never command respect, because they were never tested, never sharpened, never hardened by the fire of real struggle. But here's the difference. You're here, and that means you're ready to change that. The truth about strength. Why hardship creates mental resilience. Most men today don't know real struggle. They get frustrated over Wi-Fi speed, break down when life gets inconvenient, and crumble the moment things don't go their way. These men aren't warriors, they're comfort seekers, and comfort seekers never dominate. The men who own this world are the ones who embrace the grind, because they understand this. Pressure makes diamonds, not comfort. Adversity is the test that separates the elite from the forgotten. Suffering is the sharpening stone of great men. You don't become strong by avoiding struggle. You become strong by diving into it. Comfort seekers versus battle-ready men. There are 2 types of men in this world. Comfort seekers. They avoid difficulty. They want life to be easy. When things get hard, they make excuses, blame others, and complain about their circumstances. These men will never lead because they are ruled by fear. Battle-ready men. They lean into discomfort. They know that hardship is the price of strength. They understand that every challenge is a chance to sharpen themselves. When they get hit, they don't fold, they adapt, they push through, they win. The shift. Why hardship is the greatest weapon a man can have. Pain is a privilege. Suffering is a tool. If you know how to use it, it will make you untouchable. The greatest men in history weren't born strong. They were hardened by struggle. Think about it. Who wins in life? The man who had everything handed to him? Or the man who had to claw his way up, fight for every inch, and refuse to quit, no matter how brutal it got? If you want to be a leader, a warrior, a man who commands respect, you need to rewire your mindset. You need to see hardship as the training ground that will forge you into something unstoppable. Because the moment you stop fearing adversity and start embracing it, you become the most dangerous man in the room. The adversity mindset. Seeing hardship as a tool, not an obstacle. Every hardship you face is a chance to build resilience. Most men see struggle as a reason to quit. Winners see it as an opportunity to grow. Struggling financially? Good. It forces you to think sharper, work harder, and develop strategy. Going through heartbreak? Good. It teaches you emotional control, self-respect, and how to rebuild stronger. Facing rejection? Good. It thickens your skin and makes you unstoppable. Your mind is either getting tougher or weaker, depending on how you respond to challenges. The world isn't the problem. Your mindset is. The historical proof. Roman gladiators and the warriors' training. The gladiators of Rome didn't see pain as suffering. They saw it as part of their transformation. These men weren't just fighters, they were symbols of dominance. They understood that pain wasn't something to be feared. It was something to be mastered. Every day they trained in extreme conditions, endured brutal combat, and lived knowing that weakness meant death. They conditioned their minds as much as their bodies, so that when the real battles came, they were already prepared. Weak men pray for easier battles. Warriors prepare for war. The science, the hormesis effect, how stress builds resilience. Psychology backs this up. Controlled stress makes you stronger. The hormesis effect proves that small, controlled doses of stress toughen your mind and body over time. Lifting weights breaks down muscle, but builds it back stronger. Cold exposure shocks the body, but strengthens your nervous system. Hardship puts you under pressure, but makes you unshakable. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training. Final warning. Most men will ignore this. Most men will hear this and do nothing. They'll stay comfortable, they'll avoid struggle, and they'll remain weak. But you're not most men. A warrior's mind isn't given, it's built. It's time to stop complaining, stop avoiding, and start embracing the only path to real power. The fire is here. Step in, or step aside. The 3 pillars of an unbreakable mind. Every man thinks he's strong until life applies pressure, until he's faced with real chaos, real loss, real uncertainty. That's when the truth is revealed. Some will fold, letting their emotions control them, making excuses for why things aren't going their way. Others will rise, standing firm when everything around them crumbles. What separates the two? It's not genetics, it's not luck. It's a code, a way of operating that turns men into warriors. The men who dominate life, business, and battle all live by the same foundation: ruthless self-discipline, extreme ownership, and tactical composure. These 3 pillars forge an unbreakable mind. Master them, and there's no situation, no challenge, no setback that can break you. Ignore them, and you'll remain like most men, weak, fragile, and forgettable. Ruthless self-discipline, the death of emotional weakness. Most men are slaves to how they feel. If they don't feel like doing something, they don't do it. If something is uncomfortable, they avoid it. If it requires pain, sacrifice, or effort, they retreat. This is why most men never build anything of value. They wait for motivation, thinking that one day they'll feel ready to take action. But warriors don't wait. They move, they act. They do what's necessary whether they feel like it or not. This is what separates leaders from followers. A real man follows orders, especially his own. He wakes up when he says he will. He trains when he says he will. He executes the mission. regardless of how tired, unmotivated, or overwhelmed he feels. He does what needs to be done, not what feels good in the moment. In Navy SEAL training, there's a phrase, embrace the suck. It means accepting pain, exhaustion, and suffering as part of the process. SEALs don't rely on emotions, they rely on discipline. When the body screams for rest, the mind says, not yet. When fear creeps in, the mind says, keep going. If you wait until you feel ready to become the man you're meant to be, you'll never get there. Discipline isn't a sometimes thing, it's the foundation of everything. Extreme ownership. Your life is your fault. Weak men blame. They point fingers. They create excuses for why they aren't where they want to be. The economy is bad. My boss is unfair. I wasn't given the same chances as other people. The list goes on. But here's the reality. Everything in your life is your responsibility. If you're broke, your fault. If you're out of shape, your fault. If you're surrounded by weak, negative people, your fault. Most men reject this idea because it's easier to blame circumstances than to admit they're in control. But the moment you take full ownership over everything in your life, even the things that weren't your fault, you take back your power. Because as long as you blame external factors, you give up control. Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL commander, learned this lesson in combat. During a mission in Iraq, one of his men was killed due to friendly fire. He could have blamed the chaos of war, the confusion of the battlefield, or even the men involved. But instead, he did something most men would never do. He took full responsibility. It was his team, his mission, his leadership. He owned it, and by doing so, he ensured it never happened again. That's what real men do. They take control, no matter the cost. Because a man who owns his mistakes is a man who can fix them. If you're not where you want to be in life, look in the mirror. The problem is staring right back at you. But so is the solution. Tactical composure. Mastering chaos. Most men panic under pressure. When life applies stress, their minds scatter. They default to fear, anger, or impulsive decisions. But a warrior's power comes from his ability to remain calm while the world burns around him. Think about it. Who do people follow in a crisis? The man who panics, or the man who remains steady, unshaken, in control? Panic is the natural response. When the brain perceives danger, it triggers the amygdala, your survival center, activating fight, flight, or freeze. This is why most men choke under pressure. They let their instincts take over instead of training their minds to remain sharp. But the elite don't operate this way. They understand that chaos is inevitable, but their response to it is a choice. In SEAL training, recruits are pushed to their physical and mental limits, one of the most brutal tests being thrown into near-drowning situations. The only way to pass? Remain calm. If they panic, they fail. If they freeze, they fail. The only way out is to override their instincts, slow their breathing, and think clearly under extreme pressure. The same principle applies to life. Your ability to control your emotions in high-stakes situations determines whether you dominate or collapse. Whether you're leading a business, handling a family crisis, or standing your ground in a moment of confrontation, your composure is your weapon. You must train yourself to stay calm, to think clearly, to never let emotion dictate your actions. The moment you master this, you become untouchable. The path to an unbreakable mind. Most men will never develop these three pillars. They'll keep chasing comfort, making excuses, and allowing their emotions to control them. They'll stay reactive, weak, and forgettable. But the few who take this seriously, they become the men who command respect, control their world, and never break under pressure. So here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, Implement these 3 pillars. Wake up when you say you will. Hold yourself responsible for everything in your life. Train your mind to stay calm in the face of stress. You don't need motivation. You don't need permission. You just need to act. Because the moment you own your mind, you own your destiny. And if you refuse, you'll stay exactly where you are, weak, replaceable, and forgotten. Your move. How to train yourself to be unshakable. Why this matters. An unshakable man does not flinch under pressure. He does not hesitate when things get hard. He does not wait for life to test him. He deliberately forges himself through suffering. Weak men break when adversity comes. They crumble under stress because they have never trained their minds to withstand hardship. They live life reactively, waiting for challenges to come, and when they do, they panic, they fold, and they fail. But the elite, the warriors, the men who dominate, they do not wait for suffering to find them. They seek it out. They make discomfort a daily practice, a ritual. They understand that resilience is not given, it is built. If you want to be the kind of man who can walk into fire and not burn, you must train your mind like a warrior. Suffering should be voluntary, not accidental. That is the difference between men who lead and men who follow. And the way to train this? 4 brutal mental toughness drills. 1. Cold exposure. Train your mind to handle discomfort. Nothing is more primal than the cold. It does not care about your emotions. It does not listen to excuses. When you step into an ice-cold shower or a freezing body of water, your body immediately wants to panic. Your heart rate spikes. Your breathing becomes erratic. Your brain screams at you to step out. But this is where the training begins. The cold is a controlled battlefield, a place where you can test your discipline every single day. If you can override your mind's instinct to escape discomfort, you are rewiring yourself to handle adversity in every aspect of life. Scientific studies have shown that cold exposure improves stress resilience, mental clarity, and even immune function. More importantly, it trains your nervous system to stay calm under pressure. If you can withstand the shock of freezing temperatures without flinching, imagine what else you can handle. Your challenge: start every morning with a 60-second cold shower. Gradually extend it. Embrace the discomfort. 2. Controlled starvation. Teach your body and mind who's in charge. Most men today are weak because they have never gone without. Food is always available. Comfort is always within reach. Their body and mind have never been truly tested by deprivation. But warriors throughout history, Spartans, samurai, and monks, understood the power of fasting. By deliberately going without food, you train your mind to resist urges and cravings. You teach your body that it is not in control. You are. Intermittent fasting has been proven to enhance mental clarity, discipline, and self-control. But beyond the science, it is a battle of willpower. Every hunger pang is a test. Will you fold, or will you master yourself? Your challenge? Fast for 16 to 20 hours daily. Push through the discomfort. Own your hunger instead of letting it own you. 3. High-stakes situations. Put yourself in tough situations deliberately. Most men avoid risk. They stay in their comfort zones, never experiencing true pressure. But the elite? They throw themselves into high-stress situations on purpose. Public speaking when you fear it. Sales calls when rejection terrifies you. Physical combat sports when you hate confrontation. Your brain only grows stronger by experiencing pressure and realizing you can survive it. Every time you face a fear head-on, you rob it of its power. This is why elite soldiers train in live combat scenarios, because the more exposure they have to stress, the less it controls them. Your challenge: every week put yourself in one high-stakes situation that forces you to adapt, think, and act under pressure. 4. Mental reps. Daily visualization of overcoming hardship. The mind is your most powerful weapon, but only if it's trained. High-level athletes, elite soldiers, and top-performing CEOs all practice visualization, the ability to see themselves winning before it happens. Why? Because your brain cannot tell the difference between a real event and a vividly imagined one. When you visualize yourself pushing through pain, staying calm under pressure, and overcoming obstacles, you are programming your brain for success. The Navy SEALs use this exact technique during Hell Week, the most grueling training in the world. The men who succeed, they don't focus on the pain. They visualize themselves making it to the end. And that is why they do. Your challenge. Every morning, spend 5 minutes visualizing yourself overcoming hardship. See yourself pushing through exhaustion. See yourself dominating challenges. Train your mind before the battle begins. How warriors trained their minds as well as their bodies. Throughout history, the greatest warriors understood that mental strength was just as crucial as physical power. Samurai practiced Zen meditation to cultivate unshakable focus and emotional control. Spartans subjected themselves to brutal training conditions to eliminate fear and hesitation. Roman gladiators trained to embrace pain as part of their path to greatness. They did not wait for challenges to come, they created them. They sought out suffering because they knew that pain is the greatest teacher. If you want to be unbreakable, you must train your mind as ruthlessly as you train your body. How the elite handle pressure in business, war, and life. Why this matters. Pressure is the great separator. It exposes weak men and forges great ones. It is the ultimate test, one that leaders, warriors, and high performers do not fear, but embrace. Look at the highest levels of success, whether it's business, war, or elite sports. The men who dominate are not the ones who avoid stress, but the ones who thrive in it. The CEO making a billion-dollar decision while markets collapse. The general leading troops under enemy fire with lives at stake. The boxer in the 12th round, bloodied but still standing. These men are not superhuman. They have simply trained themselves to perform under pressure. And if you want to be in control of your destiny, you must do the same. Why the elite thrive under pressure. Most men crumble when the stakes rise. Their hands shake. Their minds cloud with doubt. They freeze or panic. But the elite? They are calm, decisive, and unshakable, even in the face of chaos. Why? Because they understand 3 critical truths about pressure. It is not the enemy. It is the proving ground. The greatest opportunities only exist in high-stakes situations. Without pressure, there is no challenge. Without challenge, there is no greatness. Pressure doesn't create weakness, it reveals it. If a man folds under stress, it means he was weak all along. True strength is built long before the moment of crisis. The mind breaks before the body does. The difference between a man who quits and a man who pushes through is not physical, it's mental. The elite do not let emotions dictate their actions. This is why the highest performing men in the world train their minds just as much as their skills. How to control emotions under high-stakes decisions. Pressure makes most men emotional. Their fear, doubt, or anger takes over, and they make impulsive, irrational decisions. But elite performers, they train themselves to override emotion with logic. Slow down your reactions. The moment you feel stress rising, do not act immediately. In business, before responding to a crisis, take a breath. Delay your reaction by seconds if needed. In war, a general who reacts too quickly without assessing the battlefield loses men. In life, A man who lets anger dictate his words or actions always regrets it. Mastery begins with control over impulse. 2. Detach from the situation. Navy SEALs have a rule: step outside yourself. When pressure hits, they train themselves to mentally detach, to see the situation from the outside rather than being overwhelmed by it. Ask yourself, if I were advising someone else in this situation, what would I tell them to do? Change perspectives. Instead of thinking like a participant, think like a strategist. Eliminate the emotional noise. The more you can step back and analyze, the better your decisions will be. 3. The power of silence. Why true warriors never panic. Watch a seasoned leader under stress, a general, a CEO, a fighter in the ring. What do they all have in common? They do not panic. Weak men crack under pressure because they let external chaos control their internal state. But real warriors? They stay silent. They think. They control the moment. A panicked man talks too much. A strong man listens. A panicked man reacts. A strong man strategizes. A panicked man is ruled by fear. A strong man is ruled by discipline. If you can master stillness in pressure, you will always have the advantage. How a CEO made a billion-dollar decision under extreme pressure. In 2008, the global financial crisis wiped out businesses overnight. Markets collapsed, investors panicked, even seasoned executives were losing control. But one CEO, Jamie Dimon of JP Chase, did the opposite of what most did. Instead of reacting emotionally, he remained calm and analyzed the chaos. While other banks scrambled to survive, Dimon saw an opportunity. He strategically acquired assets and made billion-dollar moves while the world was in fear. The result? JP Chase emerged stronger than ever, dominating Wall Street while other firms crumbled. What separated Dimon from the rest? His ability to remain composed under pressure. This is the same mindset that wins battles, closes deals, and dominates competition. Final thought: pressure is the test that makes men. The world belongs to men who can handle pressure. Most will break. A few will rise. Train yourself to slow down, control emotion, and master silence. When the moment of crisis comes, you will not be shaken. And when others fall apart, you will be the man who stands tall. The Alpha Code, what this episode was really about. This is not motivation, this is war. Let's be clear. This episode was never about inspiration. Motivation? That's for weak men who need to be hyped up just to get out of bed. Real men don't rely on fleeting emotions. They follow a code, a system, a way of life that ensures they are always prepared, always in control, and always at war with weakness. Because here's the truth. Weakness is a choice. So is strength. You don't wake up one day mentally resilient. You don't stumble into discipline, ownership, and composure. These are things you forge through battle. And battle is coming, whether you like it or not. The world will test you. Will you break or will you conquer? Hard times are not a possibility. They are a certainty. You will be tested. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But at some point, life will throw everything at you. The job loss, the betrayal, the death in the family. The moment when the world feels like it's collapsing on top of you. What will you do then? Fold, cry, blame the world? Or will you do what men have always done? Stand, fight, adapt, win. Why you don't need motivation? You need a code. Motivation is like a candle in a hurricane. It flickers and dies the moment pressure hits. That's why weak men fail. They build their lives around feeling like doing things instead of doing what needs to be done, no matter what. This is why the elite follow a code. a set of non-negotiable rules that govern their actions. Your emotions do not dictate your life. Your code does. A man who lives by a code doesn't need motivation to train. A man who lives by a code doesn't need a pep talk to get to work. A man who lives by a code doesn't break when things get tough. He executes. And when you follow a code, pressure doesn't weaken you. It sharpens you. Elite men who followed a code and dominated. History does not remember men who sought comfort. It remembers those who thrived in chaos. 1. Hannibal Barca, the general who defied Rome. Most men break when they face impossible odds. Hannibal Barca? He saw it as a challenge. When Rome, the greatest empire of its time, tried to crush him, he didn't retreat. He didn't surrender. He adapted. With fewer troops and fewer resources, he crossed the Alps in winter, a move no one thought possible, and took the fight straight to Rome. What does this teach you? Excuses mean nothing. Execution means everything. 2. Ernest Shackleton, the man who refused to die. In 1915, Ernest Shackleton's expedition to Antarctica went horribly wrong. His ship was crushed by ice, leaving him and his men stranded in the most brutal conditions on Earth. They had no outside help, no food supply, no hope, except for the code Shackleton lived by. Never break, never surrender. He led his men across deadly waters in nothing but lifeboats, traveled across glaciers, and kept every single one of them alive. What does this teach you? A leader's mindset determines whether his people survive or perish. When everything is against you, you don't pray for rescue, you find a way out. CEO man is not for the weak, it's for the unbreakable. If you've made it this far, you already know the truth. Most men are soft. They seek comfort. They crumble under pressure. They excuse their weakness with phrases like, "It's too hard," or "Life is unfair." But we don't make excuses. We make results. CEO man is not for the average man. It's not for the weak, the lazy, or the excuse makers. It's for men who are ready to lead, ready to take control, ready to dominate in business, in life, and in battle. Final words. Are you ready for war? You are not here to be inspired. You are not here to feel good. You are here to be forged. This episode was a battlefield, a war zone for the mind. And if you've made it through, then understand one thing. This is just the beginning. Most men today are soft, weak. Their minds are brittle because they've never faced the fire. But you came here for something more. You came here because you know the truth. Life is war. And war does not care how you feel. It does not wait for you to be ready. It does not stop when you are tired. It comes whether you are prepared or not. The only question that matters is this. When the battle begins, will you be a warrior or a victim? Because make no mistake, the battle is coming. The pressures of life, the betrayals, the financial collapses, the moments of doubt, the split-second decisions that define whether you rise or fall. And when that moment comes, you will have two choices. You break or you dominate. There is no middle ground. Ares, the god of war, does not respect men who hesitate. He does not bless men who run. He blesses those who embrace the fight. The warriors, the men who wake up every day and prepare for war, mentally, physically, financially. If you are listening to this, then hear me loud and clear. You have no excuse to be weak. You have no excuse to be undisciplined. You have no excuse to be a man who crumbles under pressure. You don't need motivation. You don't need another speech. You need to execute. Today, right now, step up, train harder, think sharper, move with intent, because the world belongs to warriors, and weakness is the death of men. This is CEO man. This is Ares. This is war, and war is coming. The only question is, will you be ready?